What's up, guys? Today we're going to be having another crack at applying some technical analysis to the Counter-Strike market. Previously we've tried to have a look at whether the Tech-9 wideout in minimal wear is undervalued, or whether the Tech-9 wideout in factory new is overvalued or anything like that, and we did so through comparing the factory new to minimal wear price ratio of all of the different whiteout skins to see if there are any outliers, to see if anything doesn't really check out, to see if anything's too good to be true. At the moment, the minimal wear Tech 9 whiteout's quite cheap, and I just want to find out really whether it's something worth investing in. So yeah, last time we compared all of the whiteout skins to see if any of them were significantly different from one another in terms of the factory new to minimal wear price ratio. But at the end of the day, drawing any sort of conclusions from this analysis alone isn't enough, and you can't really rely on comparing, a Tech 9 to a USP to a P250 to an MP7, regardless of if they're all whiteouts, and they are going to have some sort of similarities in that sense. But I think, a USP is going to sell wildly differently to an MP7. Same for the P250. So I think a bit more analysis needs to be done to sort of zero in on what we're trying to figure out. And I think that this alone isn't enough. So today we are going to be looking at the historical data for the Tech 9 whiteout. So we're going to be looking at the factory new to minimal wear ratio again, but we're not going to be comparing it to any other skins. At the current moment, we're going to be comparing it to the same ratio, but from a different time. So I'm sure you guys are all aware that the Counter-Strike skin market is sort of taking a bit of a tumble these last, 2-3 months. Everything's really been on a bit of a landslide, and that is actually, for our analysis, good. This is a good thing, because the market over the period has got a stable trend. It would be a lot more difficult to pin down whether the factory new to minimal wear ratio for the Tech 9 is expanding or shrinking. If we've got a market benchmark that's going up and then down, and it's hard to make sense of it. So while it is a shame that the price of all my skins have gone down quite considerably, for the purposes of our analysis, it's actually going to be quite helpful. So we can see whether the market going down has made the factory new to minimal wear ratio go widen just as much, or whether it's made it shrink exponentially or anything like that. So we're going to definitely be able to tell whether there's any correlation to the market as a whole, its price movement, compared to the difference between factory new Tech 9 whiteouts and minimal wear Tech 9 whiteouts. So I won't waste any more time. We'll get straight into the analysis. We'll have a look, and we'll see if there's anything of value to take from what we're doing. Okay, so on the Excel sheet here, you can see what we're going to be going through. Today is the 28th of July, so working backwards, we can have a look at the factory new price, the minimal wear price, and then we're going to be able to get the ratio from those two for the last 5 weeks, and we're going to be able to compare week on week on week how the ratio has changed, and then obviously we can compare that to, we've got float open. Obviously this is how we're going to be able to tell the prices for the last month for the skin itself. So this is how we're going to be able to check the float of the skins themselves, and we're going to compare them to buff. We've got buff open because they are actually really good with their indexes. So you can see that obviously over the last 6 months things are really bad. 3 months, it doesn't actually look insanely horrible, but today we're going to be looking at the 1 month, and that is pretty dire. That's a pretty red month. So we're going to compare the difference in the ratio in the 1st of July to the 28th of July, and see how it pairs up with the actual benchmark itself. Again, just see if anything stands out. We're not really looking for a clear, oh my god, you have to buy 50 minimal wear Tech 9s like sort of signal. It's just, oh well, that's a bit weird. Maybe maybe I should consider buying a couple, or maybe the factory news undervalued. Right now it's pretty cheap. So you know, we're not looking for any specific, oh, do this now, do this whenever, but it's just, you know, 370 for a factory news pretty good. So, you know, at the surface level, I might think, that might be worth buying. Minimal wear's the same thing. It's just cheap in general. So we might not actually get anything too concrete from this analysis. It might just sort of, you know, everything's cheap at the moment, especially these, the Train 2025 and the Sport and Field have just completely sunk. They've done absolutely horrible since the collections themselves were removed. But let's get back onto the Excel and let's have a look. So I'll work through this, you know, with you guys rather than just getting it done and showing you, because this is new to me as well. So I want it to be a learning experience. Again, I'm not. This channel isn't for me to show you guys complete work and go, oh well, this is what I did, and you know, figure it out. This is me documenting my process of trying to understand if this sort of analysis works in Counter-Strike, and so I'm going to bring you along to figure it out. You know, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student in this case. I'm trying to figure it out myself. So for this, for the ratio, it's just going to be that one there. And now we can start working through. We'll get today's numbers first, and we'll probably work backwards. So we'll just go with the cheapest listing in this case, and we'll round as well. Just round down. 370 is good enough. It's not going to make a meaningful difference. To 32. And there we get today's ratio, which is quite different from the one that we calculated about a week ago. Sorry. From the ratio we calculated about a week ago. And then we can just work backwards. And now we are going to have to consult the graph. So we are looking at, sorry, the 21st of July, where we would have seen that. We'll just use this number for now. We don't really have to apply too much judgment. 40.52 sounds about right. We'll just put down 40. We'll work through all of the minimal wears and then all the factories. It makes more sense that way. 14th of July, 43.34. 7th of July, 56.44. And on the 1st of July, 62.14. I don't know about that personally. You know, obviously that is the average for some lower float examples as well. This isn't just the bottom price, whereas this is the bottom price, so it might not be a perfect analysis, but I think for the purposes of what we're doing today, it won't make too much of a difference. Now looking at the factory news, 370 obviously. On the 21st, it was 393. On the 14th, it was 451. On the 7th, it was 588. And on the 1st, it was 573. Okay, so now we have got a bit of a timeline sussed out for us, so we can see that the lowest ratio we ever had over the period, over the 5 weeks, or over the 4 weeks, over the 5 dates, is at the beginning. It's not a perfectly linear increase. 9.2, 10.5, pretty much 10.5, back to 9.8, and now up to 11.56. So right now is the highest, at least for the moment, you know, at least for the last month. This is the highest the ratio between minimal wears and factory news has ever been. That's, you know, reflected in obviously the minimal wear price being significantly lower than all the other values. It's halved in a month, which is absolutely ridiculous, and that's probably something we should look into when the price for the factory new hasn't halved. It's still taken a $200 beating. It's like a 40% decrease. But actually, we can calculate it. Sure, it'll look nice. Beginning of the period price, the end of the period price. Okay, so the end of the period factory new Tech 9 whiteout is 65% of what it used to be, and the minimal wear is 51% of what it used to be. So these are really, really heavy beatings. Okay, so if we wanted to try and represent this as a graph, show what the ratio looks like in graph form, we can have a look and we'll get a line chart going, and that way we can get a sort of visual representation of how the factory new minimal wear ratio is going over time. Just this table, but in graph form, it makes it a little bit more visually appealing. And you can see, just by looking at it, there is sort of like a trend upwards. If we wanted to, we could add a trend line. And that's going to show the same thing. So it's quite a short period, obviously only 5 data points. It would be easier to do over 6 months or so, maybe a year. I could do that if you guys want me to. I don't mind doing that. It just would take an extra bit of time, and for the purposes of our analysis, this is probably good enough. But you can see that, yeah, a trend line shows that the ratio is definitely increasing over time. It doesn't take a graph to see that, you can tell. But when we compare that to the index, hang on a second, it looks like the complete opposite. So basically, when the market trends down, the ratio between these two goes up. And we can see from looking at these numbers that the minimal wear has been affected more than the price of the factory new. The factory new whiteouts have a bit of an intrinsic value just because of their rarity, and there's a certain desirability for them. All the time, it's a cool collector skin, pretty much. Whereas minimal wear, if you get it in a good float, sure, it looks great, but it's not. You can't say that you have a factory new whiteout. So there's more of a demand for factory new ones at all times, even when the market's down. So that's probably why we could see, a slightly less damaging hit to the price compared to minimal wears, where they've, basically been cut in half. But this is definitely interesting to be able to look at how the ratio increases while the market decreases. We've got a sort of inverse relationship here. So, applying this same logic, when the market goes down, the gap goes up. When the market goes up, the gap goes down. So now, combining that with last week's analysis, we ended up coming up with the resolution that, hey, this analysis would point towards a minimal wear Tech 9 whiteouts being undervalued. And then again, as long as you're a believer that the market's gonna go up at some point, I think it's gonna be a slow road to recovery, but I think that everything's gone a bit mental, in the last month, in the last 6 months, in the last year. Everything's gone completely crazy. I do believe that the market is capable of recovering. That belief, paired with the analysis we've done today and last week, they would both point towards potentially buying or opening up a minimal wear Tech 9 whiteout long position. So that's pretty much it for today. We've come to another pretty positive conclusion, really. As long as you think that the market's going to go up, hey, maybe the price of minimal wear Tech 9s will as well. So this is definitely something I'm going to take into account again, after these videos, if they do point towards buying more minimal wear Tech 9s, I'm going to do so. I'm not a rich man, I don't have hundreds, I've got less than 10. But, you know, if it's something that I think has the potential to buy me money, and it's also, you know, a way for me to put my money where my mouth is. I'm not just doing this analysis, this research just for the sake of it. I am relying on it. Whether it works or not, again, like I said in the last video, the Counter-Strike market, this is a pseudoscience trying to apply technical analysis to skins in video games. But yeah, I hope you guys could take something away from this. I hope it was useful. Please give me feedback in the comments. The last video did surprisingly well, and I did get a reasonable amount of feedback, you know, whether it's negative, positive, whatever. Tell me you hate me, tell me to stop uploading, tell me to make tier list videos, whatever you want. It really helps me out. It really sort of gives my channel some direction. At the moment, I'm like water at the moment, you know, I'll fill whatever container you guys give me. I'm just happy to be doing this. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm hoping you could take something away from this. I certainly did, and I hope to see you guys next time.